No two pieces of wood can ever be the same. And therefore, we have a unique relationship when we work with it, when we walk around in a wood building, when we sit at a wood table, or when kids play with a wood toy. There's something different about the relationship. Now, I live in BC. I grew up in Ottawa. Actually, I was born in what's now Nunavut, so high above the tree line, ironically. But I live in a forest now that has trees that are 33 stories tall. And down our coast, we have trees that are 40 stories tall in the great redwood forest. But ironically, we're only allowed to build in Canada and the United States buildings that are 4 stories tall in wood. It seems preposterous when you walk around in our forests how big these trees are, and yet we really aren't capturing its capability as a material. I like to think that wood is the actual most technologically advanced material I can build with. It's just that we're not thinking of it the way we think of man-made materials. And we are only beginning to sort of recapture, bring back the traditions of the past and reinvent them for a tradition of the future in the way we think about a material that's grown by the sun, a material that is rapidly renewable, and now a material that we don't need to let grow to hundreds of years old. We can actually capture and harness as trees that are only 12 and 15 years old and make great structures. So we've been working for really the last 6-7 years. I've been working and talking about the future of skyscrapers made of wood. I'll come back to the image of the buildings that are up here. But I started talking probably about 5 years ago at the Australian Green Building Council about the idea of building 30 stories in wood. And people really thought it was crazy. It really did not compute that that would be possible. And I was over in Australia, and I flew home, and the media happened to pick it up, and it was on the front page of the National Post that I was going to actually build a 30-story building, and I was actually going to build it in Prince Rupert, BC, which, if any of you know where Prince Rupert is, it's the far northwest corner of, it's probably got a population of 10,000 people or something, and they were going to get the world's tallest wood building. And yet, the great thing about it is that sparked a sort of storm of controversy in a way, and a conversation about whether or not this was a good idea and why it would be a good idea. So I thought I'd explain it. The really fun thing for me is that was 4 or 5 years ago, but in that time, and when we published this report, this 250-page report on the case study of why this is an important idea, it ignited a real storm of change in the last year and a half. And just a week and a half ago, the architecture firm SOM that designed the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest building, and have designed 5 of the world's top 10 tallest buildings, released a report where they think 42 stories is possible in wood, and that they're committed to spending energy to figure out how to make this real. Now, that gave me great pride as a small architecture firm in Western Canada that one of the great architecture firms of the world has picked this up. And the truth is, many of the world's big engineering firms and architecture firms are now looking at this idea. This is a very slow-changing industry, architecture. We're very conservative. It's very important we build safely. And so that level of change is huge. Now, when I started talking about this, how many of you thought I was talking about this kind of construction? This is what we're used to, right? This is wood frame. 80% of Canadians live in wood frame buildings. And how many of you initially thought, and I actually do want to see a show of hands, when I said tall wood buildings, how many of you said, yeah, but what about fire, right? Yeah, I've been here before. I know how this works. So the truth is, the buildings we're talking about are nothing like this. They use mass wood and what are called mass timber panels. So they use large pieces of wood that perform totally differently in fire. Think about it this way. If you took a match and tried to light a log on fire, would it catch in the fireplace? No. You need to build it up from small pieces and work your way up until you get to a big piece of wood. Large, massive pieces of wood don't burn. And our building codes have actually understood that for a long time, which is why you see heavy timber buildings, big, massive buildings. They don't burn, and they burn very predictably, very slowly, and actually very safely. And every fireman will tell you that, although it seems counterintuitive. We, in the last short little while, have started working with wood where we glue it together to make huge panels of wood that are 60 feet long, 64 feet long, 8 feet wide, and of various thicknesses. So we have jumbo building blocks, effectively. I often use the analogy that we all grew up as kids with a pile of Lego, and we had those little 8-dot bricks of Lego. And that's like a 2x4. And you can make all kinds of cool things. But when you sifted through the pile and you pulled out that 24-dot brick of Lego, and you're like, cool, I can do something really big with this. That's what this is. This is jumping in scale to these large-scale panels, which just shifts the imagination of how we build and the techniques of how we build, and we're just beginning to do that.